The blood didn't spray like it did in movies. It was darker, thicker, and it ruined the pristine white tablecloth of Chicago's most exclusive steakhouse in less than 3 seconds. Sienna Kane watched the crimson bloom spread across the linen, her body moving before her brain caught up. The .45 caliber round had been meant for a 5-year-old boy with dark curls and terrified eyes. Instead, it tore through her left shoulder, spinning her backward into the booth's leather upholstery. Pain came second. First was the weight of 2 small bodies beneath her, their hearts hammering against her ribs like caged birds. She'd thrown herself over the twins without thinking, without calculating odds or consequences. The mathematics of survival didn't matter when children were involved. That's what her father had taught her, back when Thomas Kane was still alive, still teaching his 8-year-old daughter how to fight, how to shoot, how to protect the innocent, even when the world insisted on grinding them into dust. The shooter stood 15 feet away, his suppressed pistol still raised. Garrison Blake. Sienna recognized the scar on his left cheek, shaped like the letter J, the same distinctive mark she'd memorized from her father's FBI files 10 years ago. The files she'd stolen the night before his funeral, the ones she'd studied until the faces of Chicago's underworld were burned into her memory like brands. She didn't let herself think. Thinking led to hesitation, and hesitation led to corpses. Her right hand shot out fingers closing around the hot barrel of Blake's weapon. The burn barely registered. She twisted, using his own grip against him, the move her father had drilled into her muscle memory through 10,000 repetitions in their basement. Blake's finger came off the trigger as his wrist hyperextended with a wet crack. His scream started but never finished. Marcus Wolf rose from his seat like death in a 3-piece suit, his Glock 17 clearing his shoulder holster in a single fluid motion. 3 shots, center mass, textbook. Blake's body hit the marble floor before the brass casing stopped rolling. The sterling oak erupted into chaos. Crystal glasses shattered. Women in designer dresses scrambled over each other toward the exits. A waiter dropped a tray of lobster thermidor, the shells scattering like shrapnel. But Marcus Wolf didn't move. He stood perfectly still, gun lowering to his side, gray eyes fixed on Sienna with an intensity that made her shoulder wound feel like a mild sunburn by comparison. She pushed herself up, careful to keep the twins shielded beneath her. Aria and Ethan Wolf clung to her server's apron, their faces buried against her stomach. The little girl's stuffed rabbit had fallen under the table again. Sienna reached for it with her good arm, pressed it into Aria's trembling hands. Marcus moved closer. His footsteps were silent despite the pandemonium, a predator's careful approach. He stopped inches away, near enough that Sienna could smell gunpowder and expensive cologne, far enough that she couldn't read his expression in the dim light. His hand came up. Sienna tensed, but he only gripped her chin, tilting her face toward the amber glow of the overhead chandelier. His fingers were warm, steady, controlled. "Who trained you?" The question came out quiet, dangerous. Not gratitude, not shock, just cold assessment. Sienna forced herself to meet his gaze. "Nobody." "Don't lie to me." His thumb pressed against her jaw, not hard enough to hurt, hard enough to make his point. "Normal people run from bullets. You attacked. Military, police. Just a waitress. Waitresses don't disarm armed men with their bare hands." He released her chin, but his eyes never left hers. "Who trained you?" The twins shifted beneath her small bodies, trembling. Aria's fingers dug into Sienna's side, hard enough to bruise. The little girl was 5 years old, watching her father interrogate the woman who'd just saved her life, and she was terrified. Not of the dead man bleeding out on the imported Italian marble, of her own father. Something in Sienna's chest twisted. She'd spent 3 years serving Chicago's elite, watching them treat their children like accessories, expensive toys to parade at charity galas before shipping them off to boarding schools. But Marcus Wolf wasn't looking at his children like burdens. He was looking at them like they were the only things in the world worth killing for. And he'd almost lost them. "My father," Sienna heard herself say. The words slipped out before she could stop them, before she could remember that Thomas Kane's name was poison in this world. "He taught me self-defense when I was a kid." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Your father's name," Sienna's pulse hammered in her wounded shoulder, blood soaked through her white blouse, warm and sticky. She needed to get to a hospital. She needed to stop talking. She needed to disappear before Marcus Wolf decided that a waitress who could fight like a federal agent was more trouble than she was worth. "Please." She looked down at Arya and Ethan, their faces still hidden against her. "Let me get them somewhere safe first. They're scared." For 3 seconds, Marcus didn't respond. Then he stepped back, holstering his weapon in a single practiced motion. He pulled out his phone, spoke 2 words into it. "Clean up. Now." 4 men materialized from the shadows near the kitchen. Sienna hadn't even noticed them during the shooting, but now she recognized them for what they were. Bodyguards, professional, armed, and utterly loyal. They moved through the restaurant like ghosts, ushering the remaining patrons toward the exits, their movements choreographed with the precision of a military operation. Marcus crouched down, bringing himself level with his children. His entire demeanor shifted. The predator vanished, replaced by something almost gentle. "Arya, Ethan, look at me." The twins lifted their heads slowly. Tears streaked Arya's cheeks. Ethan's bottom lip trembled, but he didn't cry. 5 years old and already learning to swallow his fear. "You're safe now. The bad man can't hurt you." Marcus's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I need you to be brave for a few more minutes. Can you do that for me?" Arya nodded, still clutching her rabbit. Ethan reached for his father's hand. Marcus stood lifting both children with an ease that belied his lean frame. He turned to one of the bodyguards, a mountain of a man with a shaved head and a scar running from his temple to his jaw. "Take them to the car. Lock the doors. Nobody gets close except me." "Yes, boss." The bodyguard held out his arms. Arya went to him without protest, but Ethan twisted in his father's grip, small hand reaching back toward Sienna. "The lady's bleeding." Marcus froze. He looked at Sienna's shoulder, really looked this time, and his jaw tightened. "She'll be fine. Go with Franco." "But—" "Now, Ethan." The boy flinched at the command, and Marcus's expression cracked for just a moment. Pain, regret. Then the mask slammed back into place harder than before. Franco carried the twins toward the emergency exit, leaving Sienna alone with Chicago's most dangerous man and a corpse cooling in a spreading pool of blood. The restaurant had emptied in less than 90 seconds. Only Marcus's people remained moving with quiet efficiency. One of them produced a body bag. Another started photographing the scene. A third knelt beside Blake's corpse, checking pockets, removing anything that could be used for identification. Sienna's vision swam. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion and a pain that felt like someone had shoved a white-hot poker through her shoulder. She pressed her right hand against the wound, trying to staunch the bleeding, but warmth continued to seep between her fingers. Marcus caught her elbow as her knees buckled. His grip was firm, impersonal. He guided her toward the booth, but she shook her head. "I need to go. Hospital. I can't—" "You're not going anywhere until I get answers." He pushed her down onto the leather seat anyway, his hand moving to her shoulder. He examined the wound with the detached focus of someone who'd seen plenty of bullet holes. "Through and through. You're lucky. Another inch to the right and you'd have bled out before the ambulance arrived." "Lucky," Sienna repeated. The word tasted like copper. "Right. Why did you do it?" She blinked up at him, confusion cutting through the pain. "Do what?" "Jump in front of a bullet for children you don't know, for a man you've never met." Marcus leaned closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "People don't do that. People run. People hide. People save themselves. But you threw yourself into the line of fire without hesitation. Why? Because they were children. Because Arya was 5 years old, and she still slept with a stuffed rabbit. Because Ethan was trying so hard to be brave when he should have been allowed to be scared. Because Sienna had spent her entire life watching powerful men treat the weak like collateral damage, and she was done standing by while innocents paid for other people's wars. But she couldn't say any of that. Not to Marcus Wolf. Not to the man whose uncle had murdered her father in cold blood 10 years ago. "They were in danger," she said instead. "I reacted, that's all." "That's not all." He pulled out his phone again, swiped through something, then turned the screen toward her. Sienna Kane, 24. 3 years at the Sterling Oak. Before that, 2 years at a diner in Pilsen. Before that, enrolled at Northwestern University pre-med track. Dropped out sophomore year when your father died. Thomas Kane, FBI Special Agent. Killed in the line of duty August 14, 2014, during a raid on a suspected weapons cache in Bridgeport. Sienna's blood turned to ice. How did you? I know everything about everyone who gets within 50 feet of my children. Marcus pocketed his phone. What the file doesn't say is why an FBI agent's daughter knows hand-to-hand combat techniques that most civilians have never heard of, or why you're working minimum wage jobs when your father's death benefits should have covered your education. Medical bills. The words came out flat automatic. My sister. She has lupus. The benefits ran out 2 years ago. I worked 2 jobs to keep her alive. It was the truth, or close enough. Bridget's illness had devoured Thomas Kane's life insurance, his pension, his savings. Everything except the one thing Sienna had refused to touch: the documents hidden in her father's safe. The investigation he'd been conducting in secret, the evidence he'd gathered against Vincent Wolfe for crimes that would have put him away for life, if Vincent hadn't killed him first. Marcus studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card, and pressed it into her bloody hand. Northwestern Memorial, 12th floor VIP wing. Ask for Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Tell her I sent you. He stepped back, straightening his tie with fingers that didn't shake despite having just killed a man. I'll be there in an hour. We're not done talking. I can't afford. It's already paid for. He turned toward the door, pausing just before he reached it. And Sienna, don't run. I have people watching every hospital in Chicago. You won't make it 3 blocks. Then he was gone, disappearing through the emergency exit like smoke, leaving Sienna alone with the cleanup crew and her bleeding shoulder and the cold certainty that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to comprehend. One of the bodyguards approached. He was younger than the others, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a nervous energy that suggested he was new to this particular aspect of the job. Miss Kane, I'm supposed to drive you to the hospital. Sienna looked down at her hand. Marcus's business card was soaked red, the ink running, but she could still make out the embossed lettering. No name, just a phone number and a single word. Wolfe. She thought about running anyway. She thought about disappearing into the Chicago night, changing her name, taking Bridget somewhere far away, where the ghosts of dead fathers and mafia empires couldn't follow. But Bridget was on dialysis 3 times a week at a clinic that cost $4,000 per session. Bridget needed a kidney transplant that would cost $380,000. Bridget needed Sienna to be practical, not brave. Yeah, Sienna said, letting the bodyguard help her to her feet. Let's go. Northwestern Memorial's VIP wing looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Mahogany paneling, abstract art on the walls, recessed lighting that didn't make everything look like a morgue. The bodyguard delivered Sienna to the 12th floor, spoke briefly with a nurse at the reception desk, then vanished without a word. Dr. Sarah Mitchell turned out to be a woman in her late 20s with sharp eyes and steady hands. She examined Sienna's shoulder with professional efficiency, asking questions about pain levels and range of motion without once inquiring how a waitress had ended up with a through-and-through gunshot wound. You're fortunate, Dr. Mitchell said, injecting local anesthetic around the entry and exit wounds. No bone damage, no arterial involvement. I'll clean it, stitch it up, prescribe antibiotics. You'll need to keep the arm immobilized for at least 2 weeks. Can't. I have work. Not anymore, you don't. Dr. Mitchell met her gaze with something that might have been sympathy. Mr. Wolfe called ahead. He's covering your medical expenses and compensating you for lost wages during your recovery. Whatever he wants from you, he's willing to pay for it. That's what worried Sienna most. The procedure took 40 minutes. Dr. Mitchell worked in silence, her movements precise and unhurried. She stitched the wounds closed with dissolvable sutures, applied sterile dressings, and fitted Sienna with a sling that immobilized her left arm against her chest. All set. I'll send the prescriptions to the pharmacy downstairs. Take the full course of antibiotics even if you start feeling better. If you experience fever, increased pain, or discharge from the wounds, come back immediately." "Thank you." Dr. Mitchell paused at the door. "Be careful with Marcus Wolf. He's not like the others. He pays well, keeps his word, protects his people, but he's still dangerous. Don't forget that." Then she was gone, leaving Sienna alone in a private room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city sprawled below her, a constellation of light and shadow, beautiful and merciless. Somewhere out there, Bridget was sleeping in their studio apartment, hooked up to the portable dialysis machine that kept her alive another day. Somewhere out there, Vincent Wolf was walking free, probably celebrating his nephew's near-death experience with expensive scotch and the satisfaction of a plan well executed. Because Garrison Blake hadn't been working alone. Sienna knew that the same way she knew her own name. The attack had been too precise, too well-timed. Blake had known exactly where Marcus would be sitting, exactly which angle would give him the clearest shot at the twins while keeping Marcus in his peripheral vision. Someone had given him that information. Someone close enough to the Wolf family to know their routines, their security protocols, their vulnerabilities. The door opened. Sienna tensed hand, moving automatically toward the call button before she recognized the man entering. Marcus Wolf had changed clothes. The blood-spattered three-piece suit was gone, replaced by dark jeans and a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Tattoos covered his forearms, intricate designs of thorns and daggers that seemed to writhe in the low light. He moved into the room like he owned it, which he probably did, and closed the door behind him with a quiet click. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Fair enough." He pulled a chair close to her bed, sat down and leaned back with the casual confidence of a man who'd never been told no in his life. "Let's try this again. Who taught you to fight?" Sienna closed her eyes. She was so tired. The local anesthetic was wearing off, leaving behind a deep, throbbing ache that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She wanted to sleep for a week. She wanted to go home to Bridget and pretend tonight had never happened. Instead, she opened her eyes and met Marcus's gaze head-on. "My father, Thomas Kane, FBI special agent. He trained me from the time I was 8 years old until the day he died. Hand-to-hand combat weapons, proficiency, tactical awareness. He said the world was dangerous, and little girls needed to know how to protect themselves." She paused, letting the words settle between them like unexploded ordnance. He was right. Marcus didn't move, but something changed in his expression. August 14th, 2014. The Bridgeport raid. "I remember. Vincent came home covered in blood that night, said there'd been complications. An agent had gotten too close to the truth." "Vincent Wolf." Sienna's voice came out flat, emotionless. "Your uncle. The man who put 2 bullets in my father's chest and left him to bleed out in a warehouse while his backup was still 5 minutes away." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Marcus stared at her, his gray eyes unreadable, and Sienna waited for him to pull the gun from his waistband and finish what his family had started 10 years ago. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. "I hate Vincent Wolf more than you ever could." The words hit like a physical blow. Sienna opened her mouth closed. It tried again. "What?" 2 years ago, my wife Catherine was killed in a car bombing. They said it was Carlo Benedetti retaliation for a territory dispute. They were wrong. Marcus's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Vincent planted the bomb. I know it. I've always known it. But I can't prove it, and without proof I can't touch him. Not without starting a war that would tear apart the 5 families and leave Chicago drowning in blood." Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you saved my children's lives tonight. Because you have every reason to want Vincent dead. Because I think we can help each other." He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and showed her the screen. It displayed a bank transfer confirmation. $380,000 deposited into an account at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Patient name, Bridget Kane. Sienna couldn't breathe. "What did you do?" "I paid for your sister's kidney transplant. Surgery is scheduled for next week. Dr. Mitchell personally selected the donor. Best match in the regional database. Marcus pocketed the phone. In exchange, I want you to work for me. Doing what? Keeping my children alive, being their bodyguard, their protector. He stood moving to the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. I have 20 men on my security team, all of them highly trained, well-armed, absolutely loyal. But not one of them would have thrown themselves in front of a bullet the way you did tonight. Not one of them sees my children as anything more than a job. I'm not a bodyguard. I'm a waitress. You're an FBI agent's daughter with combat training and nothing left to lose. You're exactly what I need. He turned back to face her. 6 months. That's all I'm asking. 6 months protecting Arya and Ethan while I gather the evidence I need to destroy Vincent. Do this and I'll give you something worth more than money. What? Marcus's smile was cold, sharp, utterly devoid of warmth. Revenge. I'll give you Vincent Wolf's head on a silver platter. You can pull the trigger yourself. Sienna's throat closed. She thought about her father bleeding out alone in that warehouse. She thought about Bridget wasting away on dialysis, growing weaker with every passing month. She thought about Arya and Ethan, 2 innocent children caught in a war they didn't understand, and the way Ethan had reached for her even as his father dragged him away. I want proof, she heard herself say. I want to see the transfer confirmation. I want Dr. Mitchell to verify the surgery is real. Done. Marcus pulled out his phone again, sent a quick text. 30 seconds later, Sienna's phone buzzed. She checked it one-handed, her left arm still immobilized in the sling. The message was from Dr. Mitchell. Surgery confirmed for November 22nd, 7 a.m. Donor match is excellent. Bridget's prognosis is very positive. Thank you for trusting us with her care. Below it, a second message. This one from Northwestern Memorial's billing department. Account balance for patient Bridget Kane, $0. Paid in full. Sienna stared at the screen until her vision blurred. $380,000. More money than she'd earn in a decade of waitressing. Enough to save Bridget's life. Enough to finally stop watching her little sister waste away while Sienna worked herself to exhaustion and still came up short every month. All she had to do was spend 6 months protecting the children of a mafia boss, the nephew of the man who'd murdered her father, the nephew who claimed to want Vincent dead as badly as she did. Why should I trust you? The question came out barely above a whisper. You're a criminal. You kill people. You profit off human misery. All true. Marcus didn't flinch from the accusation. I'm not a good man, Sienna. I've done terrible things and I'll do more before this is over. But I love my children more than I love power money or my own life. And right now they need someone who'll die for them without being ordered to. He held out his hand. 6 months. That's all I'm asking. Do we have a deal? Sienna looked at his outstretched hand. She thought about all the reasons this was insane, all the ways it could go wrong, all the lives that would be destroyed if she said yes. She thought about her father's ghost watching from wherever the dead went, judging her for making peace with his murderer's family. Then she thought about Bridget alive and healthy and free from the dialysis machine that had become her prison. She thought about Arya's small hand clutching that stuffed rabbit. She thought about Ethan trying so hard to be brave when he should have been allowed to be scared. She reached out with her good hand and shook. 6 months, she agreed. And then you give me Vincent. Marcus's grip was firm, his skin warm against hers. 6 months, he promised, and then we both get what we want. He released her hand and headed for the door but paused before leaving. Get some rest. My driver will pick you up tomorrow morning at 9. He'll take you to the estate, get you settled. The twins are asking for you. Then he was gone, leaving Sienna alone with the weight of her decision and the growing certainty that she'd just made a deal with the devil. Her phone buzzed again. This time the message was from an unknown number. Saw the news about the shooting at Sterling Oak. Are you okay? Do you need me to come get you, Bridget? Always worrying even when she was the one dying. Sienna typed back one-handed. I'm fine. Just a graze. I'll be home soon. Don't wait up. She hesitated, then added, We need to talk tomorrow. Good news about your treatment. 3 dots appeared immediately as Bridget started typing, but Sienna powered off her phone before the response came through. She couldn't handle questions right now, couldn't explain what she'd agreed to, what price she'd accepted for her sister's life. The painkillers Dr. Mitchell had prescribed were finally kicking in, pulling her down into a heavy, dreamless sleep. But before unconsciousness claimed her completely, Sienna's hand found the locket around her neck, the one that held her father's picture, taken a week before he died. He was smiling in that photo, actually smiling, one arm around teenage Sienna and the other around 8-year-old Bridget. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered into the empty room, "but I can't let Bridget die, not when I can save her." Thomas Kane didn't answer. The dead never did. But somewhere in Chicago, Vincent Wolfe was still breathing, still walking free, still profiting from the blood he'd spilled. And Sienna Kane had just been handed the keys to his destruction, gift-wrapped by his own nephew. 6 months. She could survive anything for 6 months. She fell asleep with that thought, unaware that she'd just set in motion a chain of events that would reshape Chicago's underworld, destroy everything she thought she knew about loyalty and family, and force her to choose between the ghost of her father and the man who'd bought her sister's life with blood money. The city outside her window blazed with a million lights, each one a story, a life, a secret. And in the darkness between them, predators circled, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Tomorrow, Sienna Kane would enter their world. Tonight, she was still the waitress who'd taken a bullet for 2 children she didn't know. By the time dawn broke over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold, she wouldn't be that person anymore. The Wolfe estate sprawled across 12,000 square feet of Lincoln Park's most expensive real estate, all iron gates and security cameras that tracked movement like predatory birds. Sienna arrived at 9:15 the next morning, her shoulder throbbing despite the painkillers watching through the town car's tinted windows as the gates swung open with mechanical precision. The driver, a silent man named Franco, who hadn't spoken a single word during the 20-minute ride, pulled into a circular driveway dominated by a fountain depicting wolves drinking from a stone basin. Subtle. The front door opened before Franco cut the engine. A woman emerged, late 40s, silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sienna's entire wardrobe and an expression that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. "Miss Kane, I'm Margaret, the estate manager. Mr. Wolfe is in meetings until this afternoon. I'll show you to your quarters." No handshake, no welcome, just cold efficiency and eyes that assessed Sienna like a problem requiring immediate solution. Franco retrieved Sienna's single duffel bag from the trunk. Everything she owned that mattered fit inside 3 changes of clothes: Bridget's childhood teddy bear, her father's FBI badge in its leather case, and the Glock 19 Thomas Kane had given her for her 16th birthday. The gun was unregistered, untraceable, and illegal as hell. She'd never fired it outside a range, but she'd cleaned it every week for 8 years, keeping it ready for a day she'd hoped would never come. That day felt a lot closer now. Margaret led her through rooms that belonged in architectural magazines, marble everywhere, crown molding, original artwork that Sienna recognized from her one art history class at Northwestern, a Rothko in the dining room, what might have been a genuine Monet in the hallway. Wealth so extreme it stopped being about money and became about power, about reminding everyone who entered that they existed in a different stratosphere. The East Wing houses the family's private quarters. Margaret explained, her heels clicking against hardwood that gleamed like glass. "Mr. Wolfe's suite, the children's rooms, and now yours. You'll have access to the gym, the library, and the kitchen at any hour. The West Wing is reserved for business. You are not to enter without explicit permission." "Understood. The children are with their tutor until 11. After that, they're yours until dinner at 6. Margaret stopped outside a door, produced a key card from her pocket. "Mr. Wolfe has made it clear that your authority regarding Arya and Ethan supersedes everyone except himself. If you require anything for their safety or well-being, you have full discretion." She swiped the card. The door unlocked with a soft beep. Sienna's suite was bigger than the apartment she shared with Bridget. King-sized bed, sitting area with leather furniture, windows overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time staff. The bathroom had heated floors and a shower with enough jets to qualify as waterboarding equipment. "I'll leave you to settle in. The children will meet you in the playroom at 11:15, third door on the right." Margaret handed over the key card. "A word of advice, Miss Kane. Whatever arrangement you've made with Mr. Wolf, remember that loyalty in this house is measured in blood. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're family." She left before Sienna could respond, disappearing down the hallway like smoke. Sienna dropped her duffel on the bed and immediately started checking the room for surveillance equipment. She found cameras in the smoke detector and the television, both positioned to cover the main living space but not the bathroom. Audio bugs in the lamp bases, the alarm clock, the thermostat. Standard security protocol for a man who trusted no one, not even the woman he'd hired to protect his children. She left everything in place. Let Marcus watch if he wanted. She had nothing to hide that cameras could capture. Her phone buzzed. Bridget calling for the third time that morning. Sienna answered on the second ring, wincing as the movement pulled at her stitches. "Where are you? You said you'd be home by now." "I'm at work. New job." Silence on the other end. The kind that meant Bridget was processing, analyzing, preparing to deploy the guilt trip she'd perfected over 19 years of being the baby sister. "What kind of new job requires you to disappear overnight with a bullet wound you're calling a graze? The kind that pays for kidney transplants." Sienna sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion suddenly crushing down on her shoulders. "Bridge, I need you to listen. Really listen. You're scheduled for surgery next week. November 22nd, 7 a.m. at Northwestern Memorial. The donor is a perfect match. Everything's covered. All of it." More silence. Then, in a voice so small it barely registered over the phone's speaker, "How? Does it matter?" "Yes." Bridget's breath hitched. "Of course it matters. Nobody just gives away $380,000, Sienna." "What did you do? What did you promise?" 6 months of her life. 6 months protecting the children of a man whose family had destroyed theirs. 6 months living in a palace built on blood money while pretending she wasn't counting down the days until she could put a bullet in Vincent Wolf's skull. "I took a better job. That's all. The employer is generous, appreciates good work." The lies came easier than they should have. "You're going to live, Bridge. You're going to be healthy. That's all that matters." "Sienna, I have to go. I'll call you tonight, okay? I love you." She ended the call before Bridget could argue, before the cracks in her voice could widen into the truth. Her little sister was brilliant, observant, and far too good at reading between lines. The longer they talked, the more likely Bridget would piece together exactly what kind of employer paid that kind of money for 6 months of work, the kind you didn't walk away from once the contract ended. Sienna unpacked her duffel with her good arm, hanging the 3 shirts in a closet that could have housed 50. She hid her father's badge under the mattress, a habit from childhood when she'd kept it close like a talisman. The Glock went in the nightstand drawer, loaded but not chambered. Easy access, hard to fire accidentally. At 11:10 she made her way to the playroom. The space had clearly been designed by someone who'd never actually played with children. Everything was white or cream, all the toys organized in matching baskets, educational materials arranged by subject matter. A piano in one corner, sheet music open to Bach. Bookshelves filled with classics in leather bindings. Not a single comic book or action figure in sight. Arya and Ethan sat on a plush rug in the center of the room, building something with wooden blocks. They looked up when Sienna entered, identical expressions of wary hope crossing their faces. "Miss Sienna." Arya scrambled to her feet, still clutching her gray rabbit. "Papa said you were coming to stay with us." Ethan stood more slowly, his dark eyes assessing her the way his father's had. "Does your shoulder hurt?" "A little, but I'll be fine." Sienna lowered herself carefully to the rug, sitting cross-legged despite the protest from her wound. "What are you building?" "A castle." Arya thrust a block into Sienna's good hand. "You can help, but you have to follow the rules." "Ethan makes the rules." The boy flushed but didn't deny it. "It has to be structurally sound, otherwise it just falls down." "Smart." Sienna examined the half-finished structure, noting the careful placement of support beams, the way Ethan had created a stable foundation before adding height. Your father teach you that Uncle Vincent did, before. Ethan's voice went flat on the last word. Before Papa said we weren't allowed to see him anymore. Sienna's pulse spiked, but she kept her expression neutral. When was that? 6 months ago, right after Mama's birthday. Aria settled next to Sienna, her small shoulder pressing against Sienna's hip. Papa and Uncle Vincent had a big fight. We heard them yelling. Then Uncle Vincent left, and Papa said he was never coming back. 6 months. The same timeline Marcus had demanded from Sienna. Whatever evidence he was gathering against Vincent, he'd been working on it since at least May. Long before the shooting at the Sterling Oak. Long before Sienna entered the picture. Which meant Marcus had been planning something preparing for war, and he'd deliberately kept his children away from Vincent during the buildup, protecting them or preventing them from accidentally revealing his plans. Sometimes grown-ups disagree. Sienna offered, hating how inadequate the word sounded. It doesn't mean anyone stopped loving you. Uncle Vincent doesn't love anyone except money. Ethan placed another block with surgical precision. That's what Mama used to say. She said he was poison and we should stay away from him. Catherine Wolfe. Dead 2 years in a car bombing that Marcus believed Vincent had orchestrated. If she'd known Vincent was dangerous, if she'd warned her children away from him, then maybe she'd discovered something. Maybe she'd been killed not for Marcus's sins, but for her own investigation. The playroom door opened. Marcus entered still in business casual from whatever morning meetings had occupied his time, but his expression softened when he saw his children. He crossed to them, crouched down, and pulled both twins into a careful hug. "How's the castle coming?" "Good, Miss Sienna is helping." Aria wiggled free, grabbed her father's hand. "Can she stay forever?" "We'll see." Marcus's eyes found Sienna's over his daughter's head. "Miss Sienna needs to rest her shoulder. Why don't you two show her the gardens Franco can supervise while I speak with her?" The twins scrambled up, already arguing about which path to take through the grounds. Franco materialized from somewhere silent and efficient and herded them toward the back doors, which left Sienna alone with Marcus in a room designed for innocence, surrounded by toys that cost more than most people's cars. "They like you." Marcus settled onto the rug where Ethan had been, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "That's rare. Most people they meet are either afraid of me or want something from me. The kids can tell." "I'm not afraid of you." "No, you're not." He studied her with the same intensity he'd shown at the hospital, like he was trying to see through skin and bone to the truth underneath. "But you want something. Revenge. Justice. Whatever name you give it, it's the same hunger. You promised me Vincent's head. And I'll deliver. But first we have other problems." Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her a photograph. Garrison Blake's driver's license, his face cold and professional in the DMW photo. Blake was hired muscle, but he didn't choose the Sterling Oak at random. Someone told him where to find us when we'd be there, exactly where the twins would be sitting. Someone with intimate knowledge of our routines. "Inside your organization. Or my family." Marcus's jaw tightened. "The reservation was made under Vincent's name. He called 2 days ago, said he wanted to make amends, take us all to dinner. I refused. He must have kept the reservation, sent Blake instead." Sienna's blood went cold. "You think Vincent ordered the hit on his own grandnephew and grandniece?" "I think Vincent wants control of the Wolf organization, and the fastest way to get it is to eliminate me and anyone with a stronger claim to succession." He swiped to another photo, this one a text message thread. This arrived this morning. The messages were short, brutal. "Your children have 72 hours. Transfer the South Side operations or they die. V." He's not even hiding anymore. Sienna's hands clenched into fists, her wounded shoulder screaming in protest. He tried to kill them in public, failed, and now he's threatening them directly. Which means he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. Marcus pocketed his phone. "I have people looking into his finances, his movements, his communications. Vincent's careful, but nobody's perfect. He'll slip, and when he does, I'll be ready." "How long?" "Could be weeks. Could be months." He stood, offering her a hand up. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet despite the awkwardness of her sling. "Until then, your job is simple. Keep Aria and Ethan alive. Trust no one, not even my own security team. Blake got close because someone let him. That someone is still in this house. The implications hit like a punch to the gut. A mole, a traitor, someone Marcus paid trusted allowed around his children, and that person had sold them out to Vincent for whatever price purchased loyalty these days. Who has access to your schedule? Who knew about the dinner reservation? Me, Margaret, Franco, my head of security, James Coleman, my accountant, Richard Hayes. Marcus counted them off on his fingers. My lawyer, Patrick Sullivan, Vincent himself, and my sister, Rachel Drake. Your sister, half-sister, different mothers. She handles the legitimate business operations, keeps everything legal and clean. Something dark passed across his face. Rachel and Vincent have always been close. She thinks I blame him unfairly for Catherine's death, thinks I'm paranoid and cruel for cutting him out of the children's lives, which made her either an unwitting accomplice or a willing participant. Sienna filed the information away, adding it to the growing list of people she couldn't trust. I'll need full access to your security footage, all of it going back 6 months. Done. I'll have Coleman set you up with credentials. Marcus moved toward the door, paused. Sienna, the twins lost their mother 2 years ago. They're scared, confused, and they've learned not to trust anyone outside these walls. If they're warming up to you, it's because they sense something real. Don't betray that. I won't. See that you don't. Because if you hurt them accidentally or otherwise, I will make you wish Garrison Blake's bullet had found its mark. No heat in the words. Just cold fact delivered with the certainty of a man who'd made good on worse threats. Then he was gone, and Sienna was alone in a playroom full of expensive toys and the weight of promises she wasn't sure she could keep. The next week passed in a blur of routine and paranoia. Sienna woke at dawn, checked the twins' rooms first thing, then made herself visible throughout the estate. She ate breakfast with Aria and Ethan, supervised their lessons, took them to the gardens or the library or the music room where Aria practiced piano with fierce determination. She vetted their tutors, their doctors, their manicurists. She checked their food before they ate, their toys before they played, their rooms before they slept. At night, after the children were in bed, she reviewed security footage until her eyes burned, watching, analyzing, looking for the mistake that would reveal Vincent's spy. She found nothing. Whoever had betrayed Marcus was good, professional. They left no digital footprints, no suspicious gaps in their schedules, no contact with known associates of Vincent Wolfe. Bridget's surgery happened on schedule. Dr. Mitchell called with updates every few hours, her voice professionally calm, even when describing the complications that arose during hour 6. But by the end of day 1, post-op, Bridget was stable, her new kidney functioning beautifully, her color already better than it had been in years. Sienna visited twice, slipping away from the estate during the twins' afternoon nap. Bridget was groggy from pain medication, too out of it to ask the questions Sienna dreaded answering. She just held her sister's hand and promised everything would be okay, knowing it was probably a lie, but unable to stop herself from offering it anyway. Marcus kept his distance, appearing only for dinner, with the children maintaining the facade of normal family life, while his empire burned at the edges. Sienna watched him with the twins, noting the way he listened to their stories with genuine interest, the way he never checked his phone during meals, the way he tucked them in with a patience that seemed at odds with everything else she knew about him. He was a killer and a criminal, and the nephew of the man who'd murdered her father. But he was also a parent trying desperately to protect his children from a world determined to devour them. It made hating him complicated. On November 25th, a week after Sienna moved into the estate, Vincent's deadline expired. No attack came, no messages, just silence that felt more threatening than any explicit threat. Sienna was reading to the twins in the library when Margaret appeared in the doorway, her expression carved from ice. Miss Kane, Mr. Wolfe requires your presence in his study, immediately. Aria's hand tightened on Sienna's sleeve. Don't go. I'll be back in a few minutes. Franco will stay with you. Sienna looked at the bodyguard who'd become her shadow over the past week. Nobody comes in. Nobody. Franco nodded, once his hand moving instinctively toward the weapon holstered under his jacket. Sienna followed Margaret through the maze of hallways to the west wing, the forbidden territory she'd been ordered to avoid. The study was behind a door that required both a keycard and a thumbprint scanner. Margaret swiped her card, pressed her thumb to the glass, and the lock disengaged with a heavy click. He's waiting. The study was smaller than Sienna expected, more functional than ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that had seen decades of use, windows overlooking the gardens currently dark against the late afternoon gloom. Marcus stood at those windows, his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it costs. Find him. Find him or find his corpse. I want confirmation by midnight." He ended the call, turned. His expression was granite, but something desperate lurked behind his eyes. "Close the door." Sienna obeyed. "What happened?" "Vincent's missing. Disappeared 3 days ago, hasn't been seen since. His apartment's empty, his car's in long-term parking at O'Hare, but there's no record of him boarding a flight." Marcus moved to his desk, pulled up something on his computer. "Either he's running or he's planning something. Either way, I need to know where he is." "You think he's coming for the twins?" "I think the deadline was a distraction. Vincent doesn't make empty threats and he doesn't give warnings. If he said 72 hours, he meant it. But nothing happened." He pulled up security footage from the estate's perimeter, which means he's waiting for something, or he's already inside. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Inside the estate. I've had my people sweep the grounds twice. Nothing. But I can feel it, Sienna. He's close. He's watching. He's waiting for us to make a mistake." Marcus looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. "I need you to take the twins somewhere safe. Tonight. Now." "Where?" "I have a safe house in Geneva. Small town off the grid. Nobody knows about it except me and Franco. Take them there, stay until I call with an all clear." He pulled a folder from his desk drawer, handed it to her. "Passports, cash keys, everything you need." Sienna opened the folder. 3 passports stared back at her. Aria and Ethan under false names, and one with her own photo, but a name she didn't recognize. Jennifer Collins, born in Portland, Oregon, no criminal record, completely clean. "You had this prepared." "I've had it prepared since Catherine died. I always knew this day might come." Marcus reached into his jacket, pulled out a Sig Sauer P226 and set it on the desk between them. "You know how to use this?" "Yes." "Good. Take it. If anyone tries to stop you, anyone at all, you shoot first and identify the body later. Understood?" Sienna's hands shook as she picked up the weapon, checked the magazine, verified the chamber. 15 rounds. Enough to fight through most problems, not enough if Vincent had sent an army. "What about you?" "I'll handle Vincent. This ends tonight one way or another." He moved past her toward the door, paused with his hand on the handle. "Sienna, if I don't make it, if something happens to me, there's a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 317. The key's in my desk bottom drawer taped under the false bottom. Inside the box is everything you need to destroy Vincent. Evidence, witness statements, financial records. Enough to put him away for life or put him in the ground. Your choice." "Marcus, protect my children. That's all I'm asking. Whatever else happens, keep them safe." He opened the door. "Franco's waiting in the garage with a car. Go, now." Sienna wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, wanted to understand what kind of threat could make Marcus Wolfe send his children away with a bodyguard he'd known for less than 2 weeks. But the fear in his eyes was real, and if Marcus Wolfe was afraid, then the danger was beyond anything she could comprehend. She ran. Through hallways that no longer felt safe, past security checkpoints that might already be compromised, into the garage where Franco stood beside a black Suburban with tinted windows and Illinois plates that would be useless if they needed to cross state lines. "The children. I'll get them. You start the car." Sienna sprinted back into the house, burst into the library. Aria and Ethan looked up from their books, confusion giving way to alarm when they saw her face. "We're going on a trip. Right now. Bring your rabbit, Aria. Ethan, grab your tablet. Nothing else. We move fast." "But Papa..." "Your father wants you safe. That means listening to me. Let's go." She herded them toward the garage, her free hand on the Sig Sauer, every shadow suddenly hiding potential threats. They made it to the Suburban. Franco had the engine running, the rear doors open. Sienna lifted both children into the back seat, buckled them in with shaking hands. "Where are we going?" Ethan's voice wavered on the edge of tears. "Somewhere your uncle can't find you." Franco climbed into the driver's seat. Sienna took the passenger side gun in her lap, eyes scanning the garage for movement. The door began to rise, revealing the driveway beyond, and Sienna's entire body tensed. This was it. The moment Vincent's people would strike when they were vulnerable, exposed, caught between the safety of the estate and the unknown dangers of the road. But the driveway was empty. The gates opened smoothly. Franco pulled out into Lincoln Park's quiet streets, accelerating toward the highway that would take them out of Chicago and away from whatever nightmare Marcus had seen coming. Sienna looked back at the estate, its windows blazing with light against the gathering darkness. Somewhere inside, Marcus Wolfe was preparing for war. Somewhere in the city, Vincent Wolfe was planning his next move. And Sienna was caught between them, responsible for two children who'd already lost one parent and might lose another before the night ended. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, the message short and devastating. "Your father died protecting the innocent. Are you ready to do the same?" Sienna deleted the message, powered off the phone, and threw it out the window. Let them track that signal. Let them waste time chasing ghosts while she got Aria and Ethan somewhere Vincent's money couldn't reach. "Miss Sienna," Aria's small voice came from the back seat. "Is Papa going to die like Mama did?" The question cut deeper than any bullet. Sienna turned in her seat, looked at the little girl with dark curls and eyes too old for her age, and did the only thing she could. She lied. "No, sweetheart. Your father is the strongest man I know. He's going to be fine." Aria nodded, wanting to believe, desperate for reassurance in a world that had taught her hope was dangerous. She clutched her rabbit and closed her eyes, and within minutes, exhaustion pulled her under. Ethan stayed awake, watching the city lights blur past the window, his expression unreadable. He looked so much like Marcus in that moment, thoughtful, calculating, already learning that survival meant staying alert while everyone else slept. Franco drove in silence, taking surface streets instead of the highway, doubling back, randomly checking mirrors with the paranoia of someone who knew exactly how dangerous their cargo was. They crossed into Indiana. 30 minutes later, the skyline of Chicago fading behind them like a fever dream. Sienna kept the Sig Sauer in her hand, finger off the trigger but ready. She thought about Marcus alone in that study, about Vincent somewhere in the darkness, about the war that was coming, whether she was ready for it or not. She thought about her father bleeding out in a warehouse while backup arrived too late, about promises made and prices paid, about the moment when you stopped being a victim and became something else entirely. The road stretched ahead, empty and endless, and Sienna Kane drove into it with two sleeping children and a gun that might not be enough to save any of them when Vincent Wolfe finally made his move. Behind them, Chicago burned. Ahead, safety was a lie wrapped in false documents and desperate hope. And in the space between, Sienna finally understood what Marcus had known all along: in this world, there were no good choices, only degrees of terrible, and the question of how much you'd sacrifice to protect the ones who couldn't protect themselves. She'd already sold 6 months of her life. Before this night ended, she might have to sell her soul. The safe house turned out to be a decommissioned church 40 miles outside Geneva, Illinois, surrounded by cornfields that stretched to the horizon like an ocean frozen in autumn gold. Franco pulled the Suburban around back, killed the engine, and sat motionless for 30 seconds, eyes scanning the darkness for movement that didn't belong. Nothing stirred except wind through dead stalks. Sienna woke. The twins gently helped them out of the vehicle despite her shoulders screaming protest. Aria had wet herself during the drive, too frightened to ask for a bathroom stop, and now tears streaked her face as shame overtook fear. Ethan stood silent, his hand gripping his sister's, both of them looking at the church like it might swallow them whole. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll get you cleaned up." Sienna's voice came out softer than she'd intended. "Franco, you have the keys." He produced them without a word, led them to a door hidden behind overgrown vines. The lock was new military grade, completely at odds with the church's decrepit exterior. Inside, the space had been gutted and rebuilt. Reinforced walls, security cameras, a kitchen stocked with non-perishables, 3 bedrooms each with blackout curtains and reinforced doors. A panic room behind a false wall in the basement. Marcus had built a fortress disguised as a ruin. Sienna got Arya into the shower, found clean clothes in a bedroom closet, children's sizes like Marcus had always known this day would come. While Arya changed, Ethan explored the space with the methodical curiosity of someone cataloging escape routes. He found the panic room within 10 minutes, disappeared inside, then emerged looking marginally less terrified. There's food and water for 2 weeks, medical supplies, weapons. His voice barely registered above a whisper. Papa really thought we might die. Your father thinks about every possibility. That's why he's still alive. Sienna knelt to his level, ignoring her shoulder's protest. And why you will be too, I promise. The boy's eyes searched hers, looking for the lie adults always told children when the world turned sharp and dangerous. Whatever he found must have satisfied him because he nodded once and went to sit beside his sister on the couch. Franco stood guard by the window, his weapon drawn, his body coiled like a spring. I'll take first watch. You should rest while you can. I'm fine. You're wounded and running on adrenaline. When you crash, you'll be useless. He didn't look at her, his attention fixed on the darkness beyond the glass. Sleep 3 hours. I'll wake you if anything moves. Sienna wanted to argue, but exhaustion dragged at her bones like anchors. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since moving into the estate, her body refusing to relax in enemy territory. Now, with 2 children depending on her and Vincent's shadow hanging over everything, sleep felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. But Franco was right. She'd be useless if she collapsed. She checked on the twins one more time. They'd curled together on the couch. Arya's rabbit clutched between them both, pretending to read books they weren't actually seeing. The fear in their eyes made Sienna's chest tighten with something that felt dangerously close to maternal instinct. I'll be in the next room. The door stays open. If you need anything, you yell. Got it. They nodded in unison, and Sienna forced herself to walk away. Her bedroom was Spartan. Single bed nightstand, 1 window with bulletproof glass. She set the Sig Sauer on the nightstand within easy reach, lay down fully clothed, and closed her eyes. Sleep came fast and brought nightmares with it. Her father dying in that warehouse, blood pooling beneath him while he gasped her name. Bridget flatlining on an operating table, doctors yelling about rejection and failure. Arya and Ethan screaming as Vincent's hands closed around their throats. Marcus standing over her with empty eyes, pulling the trigger on a gun pointed at her skull. She woke gasping 2 hours later, her shoulder on fire, her shirt soaked with sweat. The bedroom was dark, except for light bleeding in from the hallway. She could hear Franco moving around, checking perimeters, doing the work of staying alive. Her phone was gone, thrown out the car window somewhere between Chicago and Salvation. But she had the encrypted sat phone Marcus had included in the escape folder, a device that looked like it belonged in a spy movie and probably cost more than her yearly salary. She powered it on, checked for messages. One waiting time stamped 40 minutes ago. Package secure. Cleaning house. Stay dark until you hear from me. M. Marcus was alive. The relief that flooded through her was immediate and unwelcome. She shouldn't care if Marcus Wolfe lived or died. He was a criminal, a killer, the nephew of her father's murderer. But he was also the man who'd saved Bridget's life, who loved his children with desperate ferocity, who'd trusted Sienna with the most precious things in his world. Bridget. The thought of her sister hit like a physical blow. By now, Dr. Mitchell would have completed the first post-op evaluation. Bridget's new kidney would be filtering toxins her body hadn't been able to process in years. Her sister was alive, truly alive, for the first time since the lupus diagnosis. If Sienna died tonight protecting these children, at least she'd already saved the person who mattered most. The mathematics of sacrifice were brutally simple. One life traded for another. Bridget's future purchased with 6 months of Sienna's present. If that present ended sooner than expected, the equation still balanced. She deleted the message, powered down the phone, and went to check on the children. They were awake, huddled together in the dark, their eyes reflecting what little light filtered through the curtains. Sienna sat on the edge of the couch, careful not to crowd them. "Can't sleep." Arya shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "What if the bad men find us?" "They won't. This place is a secret. Only your father and Franco know about it." Sienna hoped that was true, hoped Vincent didn't have sources deep enough to uncover Marcus's contingency plans. "And even if they did, I wouldn't let them hurt you. That's my job now." "Like a superhero," hope flickered in Arya's eyes, desperate and fragile. "Like someone who keeps promises." Sienna touched the little girl's hair, smoothing it back from her face. "Your dad asked me to protect you, so that's what I'm doing. No matter what." Ethan studied her with that unsettling intensity he'd inherited from Marcus. "What if protecting us means you get hurt?" "Then I get hurt. Some things are worth bleeding for." The words hung in the air between them, heavier than Sienna had intended. But they were true. She'd taken a bullet for these children without knowing their names, would do it again without hesitation. Not because Marcus was paying her, not because of guilt or obligation, but because Arya and Ethan were innocent in a world that devoured innocence like currency, and someone had to stand between them and the void. If not her, then who? Franco appeared in the doorway, his expression carved from stone. "We have a problem." Sienna's hand went to the Sig Sauer tucked in her waistband. "What kind?" "Vehicle approaching, no headlights, coming from the north access road." He moved to the window, peered through a gap in the curtains. "Could be lost, could be hunters, could be Vincent's people. Get the twins to the panic room, now." Franco scooped up both children without waiting for them to protest, carried them toward the basement stairs. Sienna followed, her weapon drawn, her pulse hammering in her throat. The panic room was behind a section of wall that looked like concrete but slid aside when you pressed the right sequence on a hidden keypad. Franco deposited Arya and Ethan inside the space barely large enough for both of them to sit. "Stay here. Don't make a sound. Don't come out until one of us gets you." He looked at Sienna. "If something happens to us, there's a tunnel. Leads to a barn half a mile east. Keys to a motorcycle in the barn. You ride hard and fast to the nearest police station, tell them your father is FBI, and scream until someone listens." Ethan's face went white. "You're leaving us." "We're keeping you safe. There's a difference." Sienna touched his cheek, forcing herself to meet his terrified gaze. "Your father didn't send you away to die. He sent you away to live. So live. No matter what you hear up there, you stay quiet and you stay hidden. Understand?" The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face, but he didn't make a sound. Arya buried her face in his shoulder, her small body shaking. Franco slid the panel closed, sealing them in darkness. Sienna followed him back upstairs, killing lights as they moved, turning the church into a tomb. Through the window she could see headlights, now still distant, but approaching with the steady pace of someone who knew exactly where they were going. How many vehicles? 2 SUVs. Could be 4 people, could be 8. Franco took position behind an overturned pew they'd dragged into place as cover. "You're wounded. Stay back. Let me handle the first wave." "I'm not hiding while you die for Marcus's children. Then we both die, but we make it count." He chambered around, his face emotionless. "You know the first rule of protection details. Don't let the principal die. Close. Don't let them die alone." Franco's lips twisted into something that might have been a smile under different circumstances. "If we go down loud. Give those kids time to run." The vehicles stopped 300 yards out, engines cutting to silence. Doors opened and closed with soft clicks that carried through the still night air. Sienna counted 6 distinct sounds. 6 enemies minimum. Against her and Franco, both armed, one wounded. Bad odds. Not impossible. Movement in the darkness. Shadows detaching from shadows, spreading out in a tactical formation that spoke of military training. Vincent hadn't sent thugs. He'd sent professionals. Franco's finger tightened on the trigger. "Wait for it. Let them get close." The figures advanced, weapons drawn, moving with the fluid efficiency of men who'd done this before. 50 yards, 40, 30. Then a voice called out, familiar and unwelcome. "Franco, stand down. We're not here to fight." Margaret, the estate manager. Her voice carried across the cornfield with perfect clarity, calm and controlled despite walking into an armed standoff. Franco didn't lower his weapon. "How did you find us?" "GPS tracker in the Suburban. Marcus installed them in all his vehicles 3 years ago. Standard security protocol." Margaret stepped into a shaft of moonlight, hands raised empty. "I'm alone. The others are my security team. We came to help." "Help with what?" "Getting the children somewhere Vincent can never reach them. Mexico. I have contacts across the border, people who owe Marcus favors. They'll keep Arya and Ethan safe until this is over." She took another step forward. "But we need to move now. Vincent knows about this location. He's 30 minutes behind us, maybe less." Sienna's blood froze. "How does he know?" "Because I told him." The words landed like grenades. Sienna's mind flashed backward, Margaret's phone always in her hand during the twins' lessons, the way she'd disappeared during afternoon nap times. Franco's casual comment last week when Sienna had asked about the staff. Margaret's been different since her daughter got sick, distracted, secretive. The signs had been there, small pieces scattered across a week of observation. Sienna had missed them because she'd been looking for external threats, not betrayal from within. Classic mistake. Her father would have caught it in the first 48 hours. Franco's weapon came up centered on Margaret's chest. "Give me one reason not to put you down right now." "Because killing me won't save those children. Vincent already knows you're here, already has people surrounding this building. The only reason you're not dead yet is because I convinced him I could deliver the twins without a firefight." Margaret lowered her hands slowly, deliberately. "But my leverage expires in 15 minutes. After that, Vincent comes in hard. You both die. The children die. And Marcus loses everything." "Why?" The word tore from Sienna's throat like shrapnel. "Why betray him? He trusted you." "Because Vincent offered me something Marcus couldn't. My daughter's life." Margaret's voice finally cracked, revealing the pain beneath the ice. "She's in a hospital in Cleveland, stage 4. Cancer, no insurance, drowning in debt. Vincent said he'd pay for treatment, get her into clinical trials, give her a chance. All I had to do was keep him informed." "So you sold out 2 children to save one?" Sienna's finger moved to her trigger. "That doesn't make you noble. It makes you a monster." "I know what I am. But I love my daughter more than I fear hell." Margaret's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. "Vincent lied. My daughter died 3 weeks ago. The treatments he promised never came. He used her to control me, then discarded her like trash when she was no longer useful. So now I'm here offering you the only thing I have left. Information." Franco's aim didn't waver. "Talk fast." "Vincent's 40 miles north with 12 men. He's waiting for my signal that the children are secure. If I don't send it in 13 minutes, he assumes I failed and storms the location." Margaret pulled out her phone, showed them a draft message. "But if I send this instead, telling him you escaped heading west toward Iowa, he'll chase the wrong direction. Buys you maybe 2 hours. And then what? He finds out you lied, comes back here, and we're trapped anyway." "No, because in 2 hours Marcus will have reached the Calumet River warehouses, Pier 9 specifically. That's where Vincent has been hiding his real Operation Guns money, evidence of every crime he's committed for 20 years. Marcus has been building a case, gathering proof. Tonight he's taking everything. If he succeeds, Vincent loses his leverage, his protection, his empire. He'll be finished." Sienna's mind raced through the implications. "Vincent knows about the raid." "Of course he knows. I told him. But Marcus knows I told him. That's the play." Margaret's smile was bitter. "Marcus is using me as bait, feeding information through me to Vincent, making Vincent think he's 1 step ahead, when really Marcus has been 3 steps ahead the whole time. The warehouse is a trap, and Vincent's walking into it because he thinks he's invincible." "Then why are you here? Why help us now?" "Because my daughter is dead, and I have nothing left to lose. Because Vincent destroyed my life and I want to watch him burn. Because maybe if I save Marcus's children, that one good act will balance the scale when I meet my daughter in whatever comes after this. Margaret's hands shook as she held up her phone. I'm sending the message. 12 minutes. That's all the time you get. Franco looked at Sienna, a silent question in his eyes. Trust or shoot? Believe or kill? Sienna thought about her father, about the choices that led good people into darkness, about desperation and love, and the terrible things humans did when monsters threatened what mattered most. Margaret had betrayed Marcus, sold out. His children enabled Vincent's attack at the Sterling Oak. She deserved a bullet. But she was also a mother who'd watched her child die, who'd been manipulated by a predator who traded in human suffering, who was now offering them the only weapon she had left, information that could save Arya and Ethan. Sienna's father had taught her that justice wasn't always simple. Sometimes it meant choosing between revenge and survival. Sometimes it meant working with people who'd hurt you because the alternative was worse. Send it, then you're coming with us. Sienna's voice came out hard as coffin nails. You ride in the trunk, hands zip-tied. One wrong move and Franco puts you down. Clear? Clear. Margaret's fingers moved across her phone screen. Sent. She held it up, showing the delivered confirmation, then let Franco take it from her hands. He checked the message, verified. It matched what she'd claimed, then nodded once. Move. We've got maybe 10 minutes before Vincent realizes something's wrong. They hauled Margaret to the suburban Franco, zip-tying her wrists with brutal efficiency before shoving her into the cargo area. Sienna ran back inside, descended to the panic room, pressed the sequence on the keypad. The panel slid open, revealing 2 terrified children huddled in darkness. Change of plans. We're leaving. Now. She didn't explain, didn't waste time with reassurances. Just got them into the vehicle, buckled them in, took the passenger seat while Franco gunned the engine. They pulled out, heading west, away from Chicago, away from Vincent's approaching army, away from the church that was supposed to be sanctuary. In the back, Margaret sat silent, her eyes closed, her face composed like someone who'd already accepted death and was just waiting for it to arrive. Arya whispered into the darkness, Is Papa okay? Sienna looked at the little girl through the rearview mirror, saw her own fear reflected back tenfold. Your father is doing something very dangerous right now, but he's doing it so you can be safe, so we're going to help him by staying alive. Deal. Deal. The highway unspooled ahead, empty except for the occasional semi hauling goods through the Illinois night. Franco drove 15 over the speed limit, fast enough to make distance, but not fast enough to attract state troopers. They crossed into Iowa 40 minutes later, the landscape shifting from farmland to rolling hills that swallowed the road like a throat. Sienna's sat phone buzzed. She pulled it out, checked the message. Phase 1 complete. Vincent's on the move, heading to Pier 9. ETA 30 minutes. When this is done, I'm coming for my children. Keep them safe until then. M. Relief and dread warred in Sienna's chest. Marcus was alive, executing his plan, drawing Vincent into whatever trap he'd prepared. But 30 minutes was a lifetime in a firefight. 30 minutes was how long it took for everything to go catastrophically wrong. Another message appeared, this one from an unknown number. Your father's killer dies tonight, one way or another. The question is whether you'll be there to see it. V. Vincent. Sending messages from the road, playing mind games even as he drove toward his own destruction. Sienna's hands tightened on the phone until her knuckles went white. Franco. Turn around. The big man's eyes found hers in the mirror. Absolutely not. Vincent just sent me a message. He's taunting me, which means he knows I'm with the children, knows I'm the one who got them away. If I don't show up at that warehouse, he'll know something's wrong. He'll abort, disappear, and we'll never get another chance. Marcus's orders were explicit. Protect the children. Nothing else matters. The children aren't safe as long as Vincent's alive. You know it. I know it. Marcus knows it. Sienna turned in her seat, looked at Franco directly. He'll spend the rest of his life hunting them. Tonight is the only night we have him cornered, desperate, making mistakes. We have to end this now. Franco's jaw worked, grinding teeth against impossible choices. Then he looked at Margaret in the back. "You." Vincent's set up at the warehouse. "How many men?" Margaret's eyes opened slowly. 12 with him. Another 6 at the warehouse as permanent security. 18 total. Weapons. Automatic rifles, body armor, military surplus. Vincent's been preparing for war since Marcus cut him out. Her voice carried the weight of someone reporting their own death sentence. "You go in there, you die, both of you. And then those children are orphans. Then we don't go in. We wait outside, let Marcus spring his trap, and we hit Vincent when he runs." Sienna pulled out the Sig Sauer, checked the magazine for the 10th time. "Franco, you take the children to the Iowa border. Find a motel, hole up, wait for my call. I'm going to Pier 9. Alone, you're wounded, exhausted, and walking into a war zone. I'm my father's daughter. War zones are the family business." Sienna's smile felt like broken glass. "And I made Marcus a promise. 6 months keeping his children safe in exchange for Vincent's head. Tonight I collect." Every instinct in her body screamed this was insane. She'd promised to protect the twins, and here she was preparing to abandon them for revenge. But the rational part of her brain, the part trained by an FBI agent who'd spent his life calculating risk, knew the truth. Vincent alive meant Aria and Ethan would never be safe. He'd hunt them forever, patient and relentless, until Marcus's guard slipped and he took what he believed was his. This wasn't about Thomas Kane anymore. This was about cutting the cancer out before it metastasized. Tactical, necessary, cold. Bridget was alive because Sienna had made a deal with a devil. Tonight she'd honor that deal by making sure the bigger devil never threatened anyone again. Her sister had a future now, a real one, purchased with Marcus Wolf's money and Sienna's 6-month contract. If that contract ended early, at least the transaction would be complete. One life saved. The math still worked. Franco stared at her for a long moment, measuring, calculating. Then he pulled the Suburban onto the shoulder, killed the engine, and turned to face her fully. "Thomas Kane, your father, you said he died protecting the innocent. He did? And you think revenge is what he'd want, you throwing your life away for a chance to kill the man who murdered him?" The question cut deeper than any bullet. Sienna thought about her father's funeral, the flag-draped coffin, the 21-gun salute that hadn't brought him back. She thought about the years since working dead-end jobs, watching Bridget deteriorate, carrying rage like a second heartbeat. She thought about the moment Garrison Blake raised that gun, the instant before she'd chosen to jump instead of run. Her father had spent his life protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Not for glory, not for revenge, just because it was right. My father would want those children to live. Everything else is secondary. Sienna opened her door, stepped out into the cold Iowa night. "I'm not going to Pier 9 to die. I'm going because someone has to make sure Vincent doesn't walk away when this goes sideways. And if that someone is me, then that's what happens." She walked to the back of the Suburban, opened the cargo door, looked down at Margaret. The woman met her gaze without flinching. "You want redemption? Get Franco and those children to safety. Stay with them until Marcus calls. If I don't come back, you tell Aria and Ethan that someone cared enough to bleed for them. You make them understand they're worth it." Margaret nodded slowly. "And if you do come back, then we both get to live with what we've done." Sienna slammed the door, walked back to Franco's window. "Give me your spare magazine, and your phone. I'll need it to coordinate with Marcus." Franco handed over both without argument, his expression unreadable. "You die tonight. I'm telling Marcus you went rogue, that I tried to stop you." "Fair enough." Sienna pocketed the magazine, checked Franco's phone. "Go. Don't stop until you hit the border. I'll call when it's over." She started walking before Franco could argue, before the children could ask where she was going, before the weight of what she was about to do could crush her under its enormity. Behind her, the Suburban's engine roared to life, tires crunching on gravel as Franco pulled back onto the highway heading west. Ahead, Chicago waited. Pier 9, Vincent Wolf, and Marcus executing a plan that would either end the war or start a new one. Sienna walked to the nearest truck stop, found a semi-driver hauling auto parts east, and offered him $500 cash for a ride. He took one look at her wounded, armed, desperate, and asked no questions, just nodded toward the passenger seat and pulled back onto the road. They drove in silence, the cab filled with country music and the smell of diesel fuel. Sienna watched the miles count down on the GPS, watched the clock tick toward whatever waited at the end of this night. Her shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat, her body screaming for rest she couldn't afford. But Thomas Kane's daughter had learned long ago that pain was just information. You could acknowledge it and keep moving. The semi-driver dropped her 2 miles from Pier 9, accepting her money with a nod that said he'd never remember her face. Sienna walked the rest of the way, moving through industrial darkness, following the Calumet River's toxic smell toward the warehouses that lined its banks. She could see vehicles now clustered near Pier 9, SUVs with tinted windows, vans with no markings, men moving in the shadows, professionals staging for an assault. Vincent's army preparing to hit Marcus's trap. Sienna found cover behind a rusted shipping container, pulled out Franco's phone, and sent a text to the number Marcus had used earlier. "I'm here. West Side. Ready when you are. S." The response came within seconds. "You should be in Iowa. Change of plans." Vincent threatened the children. "I want to see his face when he realizes he lost." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Then stay hidden. When shooting starts, you run. This isn't your fight." Sienna's fingers moved across the screen, typing words she'd been composing in her head for 10 years. "My father died because Vincent Wolfe thought he was invincible. Tonight he learns different. I'm not running." No response. But 30 seconds later, every light on Pier 9 blazed to life, flooding the area with illumination bright as noon. Men shouted, scrambling for cover. And from the warehouse's main entrance, Marcus Wolfe emerged with 20 armed men at his back, their weapons trained on Vincent's forces. "Vincent!" Marcus's voice carried across the dock like thunder. "It's over. FBI's 3 minutes out. Every document you've hidden here is already in their hands. You can surrender, or you can die. Choose fast." A figure stepped from one of the SUVs, and even from 100 yards away, Sienna recognized him. Vincent Wolfe. Older than Marcus by 15 years, silver hair immaculate despite the chaos, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He looked at his nephew with something that might have been admiration. "You clever bastard. You used Margaret to feed me exactly what I wanted to hear. Made me think I was hunting you when really you were herding me into the kill box." Vincent pulled out a pistol, but he didn't raise it. "But you made one mistake, Marcus. You forgot that I taught you everything you know." He raised his free hand, snapped his fingers once. The night exploded into violence. Gunfire erupted from positions Sienna hadn't seen, muzzle flashes revealing shooters on rooftops in containers behind vehicles. Vincent had brought more than 18 men. He'd brought 40, half of them hidden in ambush positions, waiting for Marcus to reveal himself. The trap had been reversed. Marcus's people returned fire, but they were caught in a crossfire, pinned down, outgunned. Bodies fell. Blood sprayed across concrete. The carefully orchestrated plan collapsed into slaughter, and Vincent Wolfe smiled. Sienna watched Marcus dive for cover as bullets tore through the space where he'd been standing, watched Vincent's men advance methodical and merciless, watched the war she'd hoped would end tonight transform into a massacre. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, a lesson taught when she was 10 years old and crying over a dead bird she'd found in their backyard. Thomas Kane had knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder, his voice quiet but firm. "Sometimes the world breaks beautiful things, Sienna, but that doesn't mean we stop trying to save what's left. That's what separates us from the people who do the breaking. We fight, we protect, we stand up even when we know we'll fall. Because some things are worth bleeding for." Sienna checked her magazine. 15 rounds plus the spare Franco had given her. 30 total. Against 40 enemies it was nothing. Against the man who'd murdered her father, it was everything. Her father had died in a warehouse like this one alone, bleeding out while backup arrived too late. Sienna wouldn't die alone. She had Franco protecting the twins, had Marcus fighting for his children's future, had Bridget recovering in a hospital bed with a second chance at life. If this was where her story ended, at least she'd written it herself instead of letting Vincent's bullets dictate the final chapter. Thomas Kane had taught her that some things were worth dying for. But he'd also taught her that living fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves was the harder choice. The braver one. Tonight, she'd do both. She stepped out from behind the shipping container, weapon raised, and fired 3 shots at the nearest of Vincent's men. 2 hit center mass. The man dropped. 39 left. Sienna ran toward the firefight, her shoulders screaming with every step, her vision narrowing to the simple mathematics of survival. She'd taken a bullet for 2 children she didn't know. She'd made a deal with a devil to save her sister's life. She'd walked into Marcus Wolf's world knowing it would probably destroy her. Now she'd finish what her father started, or she'd die trying. Either way, Vincent Wolf would learn what it meant to threaten a family that knew how to fight back. Some promises were written in blood. This one would be paid in full.